Katera Rising by J.D. Evergreen. Chapter 10. I follow Tash through the halls and she leads me to a room with a yellowed curtain across the doorway. We pull the cloth aside, step over the threshold, and enter an extravagant chamber. I look around in awe, my mouth hanging wider than is polite. The area has been carved so all the walls are a type of shelving. Every available space is filled with books and scrolls of every size and shape. Some look extremely old and delicate, like the smallest breath of air will cause them to crumble to dust. I step into the room and I can't help but wonder at the wealth of information in front of me. How many years of knowledge must be trapped in these books? How many life stories? I find myself drifting over to the nearest shelf, my eyes scan over countless books, spines wrapped in leather. I reach out and touch the nearest book, the spine of the book wrinkled from reading. I stop and pull my hand away. This is not what I am here for. I turn my attention to Lexa, who is surrounded by books and sitting at a red mud brick bench. Lexa's long hair cascades down her shoulder and settles on her arm. Her green eyes dart excitedly across the page in front of her. Another woman leans over her shoulder and points to a page in the book they are both reading. She looks remarkably like Lexa. Her bright blue eyes show great intelligence. Her skin is a few shades lighter, but the resemblance is there. Tash nudges me towards the women and leaves without saying a word. The new woman takes a seat beside Lexa and turns the book so they can both read it. They are so involved in their task they haven't even noticed my presence. I awkwardly clear my throat after a prolonged silence. Lexa? Alexa looks up and graces me with a full-toothed smile that lights up her whole face and has me momentarily lost for words. Claire, this is my sister Anne. Lexa gestures vaguely to the woman beside her and returns to the page she was examining. Anne waves at me and her eyes give me a once-over. So you are the infamous Claire that Lexa won't stop talking about? My eyebrows rise of their own accord. Lexa has been talking about me? Anne lets out a mischievous smile and takes in a breath. Lexa makes a sudden movement under the table and Anne yelps and bends to rub her shin. Lexa's ears turn pink and she returns to examining the page in front of her like nothing happened. Anne clears her throat and carefully restarts her sentence. You caused quite a stir when you arrived with the Cerebi, and Lexa has spoken about your encounter with the Chimera. I fiddle with the hem of my shirt. Those are probably not my finest moments. Anne is quick to reply. Not the way Lexa tells them. There is another quick movement under the table, and Anne jumps to her feet and makes a great show of picking up a book and stepping away from Lexa. Lexa scowls at her and returns her attention to me. Have you ever heard the tale of Celestia? I shake my head. I'm sure I would have remembered a word like that. What is Celestia? A tale from long ago about the misuse of magic and the power of a phoenix. The tale isn't important right now. The important part is a mention of 6 gems. Lexa motions for me to come and sit in the chair beside her, the one Anne had been occupying moments before. I cross the room and take a seat on the flat bench and look down at the small book. The first page is filled with a drawing of a woman in the sky, surrounded by a bright yellow light. Flying in the background is a massive flaming bird, easily twice the size of a human. I reluctantly look at the words. I had been taught to read by my parents. Hours had been spent scratching words into the walls of our cell, hours of writing on scrap papers my mother had snuck out from the infirmary. I often used charcoal my father had borrowed from unaware guards with 2 full pockets. But even with all that practice, my ability to read isn't great. I can do it, but I'm slow. I love to read, but the idea of reading out loud in front of these obviously well-learned women has my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. Lexa looks between me and the book and seems to see my discomfort. Perhaps Anne could read it out for us. Anne looks mildly surprised at the comment, but takes the book and paces the room with it. She clears her throat and reads in a clear, flowing voice. And she rose in a flash of blinding light, a luminosity so bright one must turn away for fear of blindness. The radiance of this light pulsed through the land and dispelled the power of the pretender. The light birthed 6 crystals of different colors, clustered together as if they were one. These remarkable stones are nothing like I had witnessed before. They are siblings, even with their differences. They respond to one another in a way no gem does. Together they are more powerful than the sum of their parts. But these gems do not respond to everyone. They are a gift from our phoenix, but they present a grave danger if they are in the wrong hands. Why our great protector thought them necessary is beyond my understanding, but the phoenix has powers beyond my reckoning, and never does something without a purpose. My king and queen think the phoenix wanted to store the magic for later use, but I cannot fathom why. The realm is safe, we are at peace, for now at least. The gems are to be dispatched to their new owners soon, and I pray they are worthy of heart. Power such as this can too easily be manipulated to the owner's pleasure. History tells that power corrupts, even those who begin with the best of intentions. O Phoenix, may they find a worthy home. Yours sincerely, Lord Finley. 6 gems created by a powerful phoenix. What even is a phoenix? Who was the woman? Did she know who the gems went to? I calm my racing thoughts and try to settle on just one question. Is this text about real events or a made-up story? Anne flips the book to look at the plain front cover and then opens it and reads the first page. Musings of Lord Finlay must attended during the reign of... Anne squints at the page. I look at the book in her hand. What? Anne looks up from the book. It is lost. Some sort of ink blot covers the rest. I can't read it. Lexa rises from her seat and takes the book from Anne, checking it herself. The text is lost. Whether or not it is a work of fiction, we cannot be sure. She hands the book back to Anne. However, this Lord Fenley and the position of Master Tender do show up in numerous texts. Lexa looks over the image of the woman surrounded by light and her hand lifts to the necklace I know is covered by her light green shirt. I swallow and try to phrase my question in a way that isn't obvious to Anne. Do you think the gems are real? Lexa nods. I think we are already in possession of 2 of them. I flick my eyes to Anne. Lexa follows my look. I filter her in. She will need to know this information when she takes over after I leave. You're leaving? I splutter, gripping my hands tightly. Lexa sets the book in front of me. Yes, I will be accompanying you to find the others. I blink. You are? I repeat stupidly. Lexa nods with enthusiasm. A quest like this could achieve everything we have been fighting for. We could never hope to build the numbers necessary to do more than annoy Darkmoor and his minions. But these gems, they could make a world of difference. Freedom for our people. And adds after seeing my blank expression. No more living in the dark. Well, that solves the problem of asking Lexa to come with me. I just had to wait for her to invite herself. This conversation is traveling very fast, and I have to backtrack and reprocess the information. The gems were created by someone powerful in the gift. This Lord Finley knew about their creation, and Lexa is coming with me. My stomach tightens in a way that is not entirely unpleasant at that last thought. I look up and find the 2 sisters have continued their conversation without me. Lexa paces the room with energy. We will need a small team. Anne hurries to collect paper and retrieves a carefully wrapped stick of charcoal from a tin. She spreads it across the table and writes a checklist. They will need a range of skills. Lexa nods and turns to face me. Do you know anything about where the others are? I shrug. I didn't even know where you were, or that my necklace was imbued with the gift. Lexa meets my eyes and bites her lip. Yes, that will make it difficult. Did your mother tell you anything else? I consider her question. She said the necklace gave her the ability to see the possible future. Anne looks up from her frantic writing. Like visions? I'm not sure. My mother said she had seen a glimpse of a future where Emperor Darkmoor doesn't rule us. I leave out the part about me saving the world. It seems like an arrogant thing to say. Lexa gives me a look as if she is waiting for me to say more. I look away from her intense gaze and down at my boots as if they are suddenly very interesting. Lexa waits for a long moment before she moves on. Well, that gives us something to search for. People with extraordinary abilities. Anne climbs to her feet. I will see what our contacts know. Individuals like that tend to stand out. Lexa gives her a brief nod, and Anne rushes from the room. Lexa starts collecting scrolls and books from the piles on the table.
I think that's all we can do until we find out more information.
I climb to my feet and help her, following with an armload of papers as she takes them, one at a time, from my arms and returns them to their correct places. Lexa, when we used the necklaces in the cave-in, did you notice any strange after effects? Lexa pauses to consider my words.
Nothing outstanding, just a few pains from bumps and scratches.
She pauses and tilts her head.
I did have an awful headache, but I assume that was caused by the situation.
She hadn't noticed the lines. I suppose she was busy, though. After the cave-in and before we entered the evacuation room, I noticed 3 lines on my arm. They were blue. Lexa furrows her brows.
Blue lines, like the color of your necklace.
Yes, they were hot and painful to touch. A few hours later, they faded. Lexa scans my arms with her eyes.
Any lines today? We used the crystals in the gardens earlier.
I check my arms. Nothing. Maybe they already faded. Or maybe you have to use so much of the power before it happens. Lexa places the last few scrolls on a shelf.
Well, I think we should use the necklaces with caution, at least until we can be sure we understand the repercussions of using them.
Her words make sense, but I know I will try to use it again. I want to try and get mine to work independently and explore more why my crystal lights up when I touch Lexa. Mostly, I just want to know how it works. Lexa leads me out of the room.
You have much to prepare and much to learn.
I feel like we are only just scratching the surface of a much more complicated problem, but seeing as I don't know what that problem is, I shrug it off and follow Lexa down the hall. We walk for about 5 minutes and a rhythmic beating echoes around the corridor around us. Lexa leads me to a room at the end of the hall, heading straight for the sound.
Given the perils of this mission, you will require weapons.
I have a sword, I reply, thinking back to the night I escaped the compound. Lexa side-eyes me.
I inspected what you brought with you, and I believe better weapons are in order.
I shuffle my feet. I thought my sword was pretty good. It was certainly one of the best in the compound. We step into the room and I am blasted with heat. A man works in front of an oven of sorts. It's packed with coal and burning at a temperature that makes the man's bulging arms shine with his movements. He wields a heavy hammer and beats at a glowing chunk of metal. A team of small children run around him. One is pumping a massive set of bellows that keeps the coals at their unbearable heat. Each gush of wind roars the fire into a hotter state than before. Another boy runs for a bucket of water and barely dodges past us as he hurries to do his master's bidding. The last is holding a sword far too big for him against a grinder, sparks flying from the spinning stone wheel as he pumps it expertly with his foot. Alexa and I step into the room and a knife flies past my ear and buries itself in the wall behind me. I turn to see it planted in a soft spongy board. Many similar holes inform me this knife throwing is a regular occurrence. I turn to a skinny woman with pale skin and a mass of curly black hair. She plays with one of the many knives attached to the belt strapped all over her body. There must be at least 50, and those are just the ones I can see. What on Katera would anyone need that many knives for? Lexa gestures to the woman.
Claire, this is Melissa.
Melissa retrieves her knife from the wall, slips it into position and holds her arm out. I grasp it firmly. She returns the gesture with more pressure than necessary, and I squeeze back. Lexa breaks the tense silence, and Melissa releases my arm.
Claire is here for some new weapons. Would you be so kind as to help her find some that are well suited to her?
Melissa eyes me and walks off towards the back of the room without saying a word. Lexa nudges me.
Follow her. I know she appears standoffish, but it takes a while for her to warm up to strangers.
Lexa's earnest face persuades me to follow Melissa. I walk in the direction she headed and find her standing in a room filled with swords. I hesitantly step into the room. I don't like being surrounded by weapons with a woman I don't know. Her standoffish behavior doesn't help the situation. She points at the center of the room.
Stand there.
I follow her instruction and stand quietly as she circles me, scrutinizing me as if I have something to hide. I have a feeling most people would cave at the depth of her stare. She abruptly walks to the wall and retrieves a sword. She inspects it and hands it to me without a word. I take the sword. It is light, much lighter than the ones I had received in the arena. I hold the sword out and it balances well and has a good grip. I flick the pad of my thumb over the edge of the blade, and it bleeds. I smile. This is a fine sword. I see the briefest smile ghost Melissa's face. She leaves and returns with a leather scabbard.
Side or back?
She asks. It takes a moment to realize she is asking for the preferred position for my sword. Left side, please. She nods, loops it around my waist, takes a nail and marks it.
This way.
I follow her to a large stone where she uses a hammer and nail to punch a line of holes in the belt. She slips on another smaller sheath I hadn't noticed onto the right side and attaches it there. She hands me the belt and walks to the front of the room, retrieves a dagger and holds it out to me. Quietly, I take it and slip it into the belt. Thank you. I loop the belt around my waist, not expecting an answer from Melissa. I look up to find her regarding me.
You're welcome.
With that, she turns and leaves. I wander out of the room and into the hall. Lexa is there, surrounded by a group of people who seem to be reporting to her. I stand a polite distance away and wait for her. Lexa excuses herself from the mob and approaches me.
I see it went well.
I don't think it went well at all. She basically didn't speak to me. Lexa smiles.
Yes, but you still have all your fingers.
I look at Lexa in horror.
It is okay, she hasn't cut off anyone's fingers. Not recently, anyway.
I search for words. That's how you decide if an encounter with Melissa went well? Lexa shrugs.
It is as good a measure as any. In any case, I must leave. I have a meeting.
She points down the hall.
The kitchens and eating rooms are just up there. I'm sure you can find your way around from there.
I scowl at her. Lexa hasn't missed my excitement about food and likes to point it out wherever she can. Lexa flashes a brilliant smile.
I will see you later in the sleeping rooms.
I nod, and Lexa walks back into the anxious crowd of people waiting for a moment of her attention. I had known from the moment I met her that Lexa held a leadership position, but as I learn more about this community, I am beginning to think she isn't a leader, but the leader. I hope they will be okay while she is gone. She had said her sister, Anne, would be in charge during her absence. Hopefully the people respond to her as well as they do to Lexa. My stomach rumbles. It's a good thing Lexa pointed out the kitchens. I smile and head off in a search for food. That is all for Chapter 10 of Katera Rising. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. New chapters release every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now let's talk. What do you think about the 6 gems? Are they real or just another lost legend? And more importantly, is Lexa inviting herself along the best or worst thing that could happen to Claire? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next chapter.